Can you hear me? Okay. I want to welcome everybody. Welcome those participating via Zoom. And Lester and Carol are going to take care of our national anthem.
You ready? Y'all all help us. Here we go.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight starts gleaming, whose first lights and bright stars through the perilous fight, for the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, those mercy there, came through the night, and our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marcus, prayers again.
Pray with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for another day in your creation. Lord, thank you for looking after us. Help us to do things that are pleasing to you, and that all of our deeds glorify you. Thank you for this food today. Thank you for those that prepared it. Please bless it to nourish our bodies. Lord, help us to be servants, just like you gave us a model for your Son, Jesus Christ. In his name.
Thank you. Family of Rotary.
Thank you, Madam President. Wow, this is wow. I'll stand over here. At least the list is short today, but before we do that, I'd like for you all to remember Ed Kinlow's family. Ed, of course, passed, and remember his family as we pray for comfort and peace with all of them. His funeral is scheduled for Saturday morning, visitation at 10, and the service at 11 at First Presbyterian Church. Now, on a happier note, birthdays, Mr. Ernie Foss, July the 30th. Not sure how old, but he's alive and kicking and doing well. Happy birthday, sir. Anniversaries, Celeste Pinker and Caroline on July 26th, and Anthony McAllister and Lindsay on July 28th, and Daryl Roberts and Jacqueline on July 29th. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
Our camp basket rolling. Red cap.
Who is there? Not too big.
1,099 points. And the last four are 4551. 4551.
Okay, potential judges.
All right. Didn't do it. 9 cards.
You didn't have a mirror on the sheet.
All right. And then Robbie, the introduction of guests and visiting Rotarians.
Good afternoon, everybody, on a blistering hot day in Dothan. We want to recognize our guests, visiting Rotarians. When your name is called, please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized. Mr. Chris Judah, guest of Wayne Palmer today. And then Jack Smith and Abby Griffin, who are guests, Josh Chapman. Did we miss anybody who's visiting today? All right, well, thank y'all.
All right, Mr. Duffy, would you introduce our speaker, please?
I'm gonna do it from down here. Is that okay? That way, if I do it down here, we don't get in a fight. I think the introduction today, and I apologize for being so lame with this introduction, but I found out about 10 minutes ago that I was doing this. And it seems like the pass the hat introduction, in that this is actually Archie Solomon's program that our Governor Bruce McNeil was going to do the introduction. And then as time went on, it moved, since Bruce is not here, to me. And I think the reason it ended up with me is I'm probably the one that knows the most maybe about this guy's background. I will say this, presently he is not in the witness protection program, but I will not guarantee you that at some point in his life that he wants a witness protection. And I'm being sincere. We know John as a fellow Rotarian, and I got to know John many, many years ago. It was kind of quite an accident, but a great friendship was bonded and came about. John has a very interesting past, and that the progression of the professional life he moved into ranged all the way from policeman to motorcycle cop, city of Dothan, state trooper to the state of Florida, and he has the distinction of doing in excess of 2,500 medical examinations when he was a medical examiner to the state of Florida. And then he embarked on a business of teaching police officers how to properly arrest and put a DUI case together. That in itself is pretty interesting. The other facet of that, he also taught lawyers how to defend a DUI case to keep the person from being in jail. I know a little bit about that. I think I learned more about the Drager machine. I think John must have been one of the inventors of Drager, because he absolutely, in his presentation, destroys the Drager machine if he is as a lawyer defending someone that has been stopped from being. So a lot of interesting stuff. So with that being said, oh, and by the way, he's running for County Commissioner District 4. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but don't charge me for that. Anyway, with all that being said, we have an interesting program today by somebody I think would be very proper to be able to give us the information. It's about drug anti-addiction program. And so John Gormley, fellow Rotarian, take it away, John.
Thank you, Terry Duffy, for not going into great detail about what you know about me.
Only the good stuff.
They're going to scream at me. Well, we'll start out with being able to master this thing. So why am I up here? Bruce McNeil came to me a few months ago when it was obvious that he was going to be the next district governor. And he said, I needed a chairperson for District 6880 for our drug abuse and prevention program. And I thought, wow, what an honor. Why me? He said, well, as I looked around the club, you appear to be the one most likely to be on drugs all the time. Which probably isn't far from the truth. So I'm up here today to talk to you about drug addiction, the menace of drug addiction. I've seen way too much the consequence of drug addiction in my life. And to get on a more personal level, I have a 27-year-old stepson in jail right now. Since he was 15, he has abused every drug that's ever been made and some that he made himself. 8 addiction treatment centers later, $100,000 spent. And it does no good. until you can get it out of their head that they want to be drug addicted, nothing will help. One of the more poignant things is he's been to a place in Tennessee twice. And a couple of years ago, he said, I need to go back to Tennessee. Why, Cody? Been to every drug addiction center in the Southeast. Why Tennessee? Because they know what they're doing. Well, if they knew what they're doing, why do you have to go back? And that's the way that drug addict people think. Beginning back in the 1960s, when marijuana came on the screen, none of us knew what it was. Well, some did, but the majority of police officers didn't have any idea what it was. I remember at the Highway Patrol Academy in Florida, we had a narcotics detective come in. He had a kilo, 2.2 pound brick of marijuana, which at that time was the biggest seizure ever in the state of Florida. A year later, I was detailed to assist in the offloading of a freighter full of bales of marijuana. Very popular drug. We'll talk about it a little bit later. This year, now I work part-time at a funeral home now in the staff chapel and the first. And so far this year, we've had 2 young people come in for our services that died of a drug overdose. Both of them in their 20s, both of them from opioids. I'll talk about those again a little bit later. So why am I up here? I'm up here because I told Bruce I would be honored to serve. Some of you in the room don't know me as a past president of this club several years ago. That was the year that it became a stand-up comedy. And I look back on that fondly. Y'all trusted me with that, and I blew it. But I've served on every board in this club, and I'm now in, I think, my 5th year. I'm the last of the past presidents that are still making appointments. If you want, I think that's it. I was on the verge of leaving. Actually, I submitted my letter of resignation to Cynthia Green. She tore it up and said, "What's the problem?" I said, "The problem is this. After you've done every seat you can do and been president, it's lonely back at that table. You don't feel like you have any worth to the club anymore. So I'm a little ashamed." And I told Bruce that the other day. I said, "You pump new life in my life as a Rotarian. I'm really proud to be here." So let's kick this thing off. We look back to the 1960s, and some of you weren't born until the 80s, I'm sure, or the 90s even. But back in the middle 60s, Terry said I was a motorcycle cop. I used to tell people I did 6 years behind bars, handlebars. But going back to the 1960s, a fellow named Timothy Leary was big. He was what called a hippie. I don't think we use that phrase anymore. But the hippies were tuned in to Timothy Leary, who coined the phrase, turn on, tune in, and drop out. And that's still what's happening today. We have young people that feel like they don't want any part of the society as we know it, as we function in. So what is a drug? We ask ourselves. The word drug is a noun, medicine or other substance which has a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body. As a verb, to administer a drug to someone in order to induce stupor or sensitivity, insensibility, and we would say they were drugged to keep them quiet. That's how I functioned for several years in Rotary. Sit back at the table with blank book on my face. So now we say, what's the difference between substance abuse? The 4 things we want to talk about. What's the difference between substance abuse and substance addiction? I'm gonna read right from the book. Substance abuse is when you take drugs that are not legally prescribed or legally obtained. When alcohol, prescription medication, and other legal substances are used too much or in the wrong way. Substance abuse differs from addiction. Many people with substance abuse problems are able to quit, or they can change their unhealthy behavior. Addiction, on the other hand, is a disease. It means you can't stop using even when your condition causes you harm. I could write a book on this. For many years, I was working drugs intensely in Florida. Back in those days, I was a single man. And I had two jobs. I worked the highways, I worked the interstates, I wrote speeding tickets, investigated car crashes. And then I also worked in the morgue. I had a PA license in forensic pathology, and I did autopsies to determine the cause and manner of death of people. As Terry mentioned, about 2,500 times in my career. I've seen every kind of death you can see, and the most horrible, wasteful ones are the ones because of addiction, substance abuse. When you got a young person laying on the autopsy table and you're taking them apart to see what killed them, and you find a balloon or a condom full of cocaine in their body, it burns. Instant death. Instant death. When you work a case, because you notice as you visit the different drugstores, and go in and look at the prescription that has been filled, and you start to see the same name pop up at every drugstore in town. So you begin to focus on that person. The first thing you do is find out which doctor prescribed those drugs and go to the doctors and say, you need to make a notation in your file on patient so-and-so that they're seeing X amount of doctors and getting the same amount of drug from each doctor. An addict will do anything to get drugs. My own stepson, I remember last summer, I was driving down 4th Street and I saw him walking on the edge of the road in a pair of shorts on, no shirt, no shoes. And what our practice has been is when he gets down in the gutter, we take him home, give him a place to sleep, and something to eat, get him cleaned up. And as soon as he's ready, in the middle of the night, he'll strike back out, be back on the street for another month, going sometimes 7 or 8 days without any sleep. And I got him in the car and I said, hey boy, where's your shoes? I sold them. Sold his shoes because drugs were so important. I remember a case well where a young man took a pair of vice grips, broke his front tooth in half, and went to 5 dentists on a Friday. I'll get it fixed on Monday. I can't get it fixed until Monday, but can I get something for the pain to last me the weekend? And of course, the dentist, sure, I'll be glad to. I gotta tell you, right off the bat, I'm allergic to codeine. I can't take anything with codeine in it. So that kind of narrows it down to Percocet, Percodan, and Dilaudid. Well, have you taken any of these in the past? And the kid said, I had another problem time, and I took some of that Dilaudid, whatever it's called. But I can't take the 4 milligrams because it's too strong. It comes in 2 milligrams, 4 milligrams. So the doctor gives him a prescription for 2 milligrams a lot, 10 of them. That'll last until Monday. And he does that 7 times that afternoon. 7 different prescriptions for 2 milligrams a lot. Why 2 milligrams? Say, well, the 2 milligram on the street brings $25. A 4 milligram brings $35. So you have to do the math. If he gets the 2 milligram, he's going to sell them on the street for much more money than he could ever get for 4 milligrams. cases like that, how do you combat that? Putting them in jail works while they're in jail. Prosecution works when they're prosecuted within the law. You can send them up to Kilby Prison as fast as you can put them on the bus, and they're gonna be back here in 90 days. If they've got a year to serve, or 2 years to serve, or 4 years to serve, they're coming right back. You can just count on it. And when they come back, what are they gonna do? Right back to what they. My stepson's longest time after rehab, before he used again, was 26 hours. Life wasted because of drugs. Well, let's talk about prescription medication, other legal substances. They kill in this country 70,000 people a year. These are 2019 statistics, and the reason for 2019 is death from any cause occurring within a year after the diagnosis is chalked up to that. So we run a couple of years behind in the numbers. 768 people in Alabama died in 2019 as the result of overdose. I can't tell you how many were killed when their mobile home blew up when they were cooking meth in it. In fact, there was a joke that went around a few months ago. 5 people in Huntsville died in meth lab explosion as a result of COVID-19. But some people need those statistics. We look at people dying in the hospital. Over my lifetime, people died because they were old, they had heart attacks and strokes. They died in car wrecks. Well, the last 2 years, there haven't been any people dying of heart attacks or strokes. All as a result of COVID-19, because there's money out there in having COVID-19 patients. So we talk about these prescription medications. It's unfortunate that we don't have many people refer to pharmacies. They talk about drugstore. Majority of deaths in this country, this overdose, come from drugstore and the dispensing of prescription medication, legal prescription. And when we look at prescription and over-the-counter medication, I'll read from the book, these can be just as dangerous and addictive as illegal drugs. It's considered to be abused medicine if you, one, take medication prescribed for someone else. Wow. There was a scene in a movie one time where someone fainted. And someone in the crowd around got down and said, oh, they're hyperventilating. Has anybody got a paper bag? Have a breathe in a paper bag, which is the first aid for someone who faints in that way. And nobody had a paper bag. The guy says, anybody got a bag? And everybody had a bag ready to give this guy. It was a funny scene in the movie. It was funny to a lot of people, except those of us who walk around this stuff every day. Drug overdose. When you take extra doses or use a drug other than the way it's supposed to be taken, there's a lot of experiment out there on the street among those who are in the drug culture. A lot of experimentation. What works? What 2 pills can I put together today? Give me the effect I want. In medicine, we call that effect a synergistic effect. Defined as mutual enhancement. If you take 2 drinks of alcohol, it affects you like 2 drinks of alcohol. If you take 2 pills, it affects you like taking 2 pills. If you take 1 pill and 1 drink of alcohol together, it may have the effect of 20 drinks of alcohol or 20 medications. when you go to the pharmacy to pick up your prescription, the computer has already looked at your other prescriptions to make sure you're not getting two things that are going to harm you if you take them together. Synergistic. If you take the drug for a non-medical reason, we give an example. Part of my assignment when I was working in Florida and working with the medical examiners, no drugstores with good prescriptions. It's back when they were paper prescriptions. And you scan through the different classes of drugs. The drugs are divided into schedules, they're called. Schedule 1 is a substance that has no medicinal value. An example would be heroin. It's a Schedule 1 drug. Schedule 2 drugs are drugs that have fairly strong addictive powers if you don't take them properly. Schedule 3 drugs are less addictive than Schedule 2 drugs. Same with Schedule 4. And then Schedule 5 is basically over the counter. Things that you can go in and buy. Now, what you're seeing today is more and more drugs advertised on television. You know, it must be frustrating for a doctor to have a patient come in and the doctor say, well, what have you seen on TV today that's going to help you? Every other commercial on television is for some drug. Some wonder drug, going to lower your cholesterol, going to make you 20 again in the bedroom. It don't work. Well, let's hope it didn't. So we see these over-the-counter medications, and we see these various things on various schedules. What I would do, as I said a little bit earlier, is I would begin to see names pop up drugstore after drugstore. Today, it's all computerized. One drugstore can know what another drugstore is doing in the heartbeat. If they've got any suspicion that this person in front of them with prescription is abusing prescription drugs, they key that name in the computer and it'll pop up. They already got that this morning over at Walgreens. They have a system that they use to determine that. But back in my day, it was all paper. And it was easy for someone that knew what they were doing to forge a prescription. It used to be you go to the doctor's office to be seen, and you sit there for the obligatory 45 minutes in the exam room, and you look around and you see what's in there. It's an interesting place, and here's a whole pad of blank prescriptions. So if you're in the mood, you rip off about half of those blanks, put them in your back pocket. Then when you get a prescription, you practice until you can copy the doctor's handwriting. Today it's computerized. They email your prescription, drugstore in most cases. What drugstore do you use? And they send that on over there. But it was not unusual to have a pharmacist surprised when you show them a forged prescription. That doctor didn't write this. And why in the world is that person up here in Ozark, if they live in Dothan, to get a prescription for? It's not just, oh, I forgot in Dothan. It's because they're known in Dothan. They know they're not going to get away with it. Some legal substances that we talk about: codeine, cocaine. Believe it or not, cocaine is a medicinal drug. And the purest form of cocaine hydrochloride is used in eye surgery. You put it in your eye, the eye will just sit there while the surgeon does whatever the surgeon's going to do. Fentanyl, we hear about fentanyl. Fentanyl is a dangerous drug. When police officers are investigating a capture of fentanyl, they actually mask up and wear protective gear, because if you inhale it one time, you can drop dead on the spot. But the young people out there, not so young people, the people out there today abusing drugs are lacing their marijuana cigarettes with fentanyl to give them a greater high. Hydrocodone, man, that's a painkiller that does a world of good for people. comes under several different brand names. But it's a painkiller and highly abused. Methadone is a synthetic opioid. When, years ago, I had an office way out on West Main, just outside the city limits. Little brick building, little block building, 2-room block building on a lot of acres of land. And one day a man came to the office and he said, "You want to sell this building?" I hadn't thought about it. I'd like to buy. Okay. He said, "Son, do you know what methadone is?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do. Very familiar with methadone." "Well, I want to put a methadone maintenance clinic in here." I got one up in Menace. Methadone is a synthetic opioid. And you use it to wean people off real opioids. And most people with opioid addiction got that way after surgery. When the doctor was prescribing opioids to combat the pain. And the people would take too many, too often. And the next thing you know, they've got to have it. I said, "Oh, I cannot sell it. Price was right." Gave me his card. He said, "Just make the deed out to me." And I said, "What do we put down there where it says money? Just be fair." He's asking the wrong dude. Comes to money, I don't know what fair is. So I sold him the building. And it was interesting. He had tried to open one in downtown Dothan. The then police chief and the city manager went up to Menace. Check out this doctor, see what his places were like. And they met with the mayor outside City Hall. Coincidentally, as they pulled up, the mayor was coming out of the building. He introduced himself and he said, "We'd like to ask you about Dr. Bourne and his methadone clinic." The mayor said, "I don't know the name. Where's his clinic?" John White, police chief of Alabama, pointed 2 buildings down and said, "Right there." Mayor Aniston had no idea there was a methadone maintenance clinic. These are people who are doing everything they can do to come away from addictive class of drugs, opioids, that they had no intent of becoming addicted. So Dr. Bourne added about $1 million on my building. It's out there today, westbound on Main. Just before you get to the old tractor equipment auction, is a blue building right next to a fireworks place. Little blue building, big blue building behind it. And between 4:30 in the morning and 6 o'clock in the morning, he sees 300 people a day. Prior to him opening that clinic, if you lived in Andalusia, you needed methadone maintenance, you had to go to Albany, Georgia. There was opposition, but some of the people out there around Bay Springs heard there was going to be a drug clinic in their neighborhood. They protested it. They put signs up in the median street. "Druggies are coming soon. Lock your doors." Well, about a year after it went in operation, I was out at Bay Springs, Terry's Grocery out there. I want a biscuit early in the morning. He makes some of the best. And I said, "Terry, have you noticed anything about the methadone clinic?" "I don't guess you haven't opened it. But I have noticed that between 6 o'clock in the morning and about 7 o'clock, I'm selling several thousand more gallons of gasoline a month. And a whole lot more biscuits." That's those people coming in, those troublemakers, druggies coming in, people that are trying to get better. Morphine sulfate, the big win if you've been hurt badly. Injection of morphine sulfate, numbing your pain and make you forget what happened. Extremely powerful. Oxycodone again, opioid, oxymorphone again. Any opioid is a compound resembling opium and its addictive properties are physiological by legal substances illegally obtained. I'm going to lie to a doctor about your illness. Last year, I heard about a young lady that I knew her parents did well. Seemed to be doing well at 25 years old, had a good job. But she was going to a pain clinic once a week because she had pain, unspecified but pain. And she would get a prescription for 100 Oxycontin. And then do something like go back to the doctor and say, my pills accidentally got flushed down the toilet. Get another prescription for another 100. She was going to 3 and 4 pain clinics a week, taking those pills, selling something. Forgery of a prescription. Told you about that a minute ago, and it's very difficult to do that today because doctors email prescriptions in. But it used to be people try to add the number of pills. If the prescription was for 20, it added a 1 to it. Then doctors started using Latin and trying to get around people changing their prescriptions. The guy on the street is always 1 step ahead of the doctors and the pharmacists. They've all got a story, they've all got an explanation for why they need what they're in there to give. It's a sorry life. They're mostly living in the cars. They won't do what it takes to get straight and get a job and get a place to live. 9 years ago, those of you might remember Cody Kirchhoff, pastor at Harvard Church, came in and talked to us, and he alluded to the fact that I had started a Celebrate Recovery ministry at the church. Celebrate recovery, people with hurts, hang-ups, and habits in one shake. Well, what happened was we started the Harbor Church, and the kickoff was big. It was obviously going to be a very popular place for people to get a meal and come to church. Learned very quickly that you do the meal after the sermon. Not, you're only going to have a few people. But we had a Celebrate Recovery ministry at several churches. Harvest Church had one on Friday nights. Covenant had one, I believe, on Wednesday night. So Hayes McKay, the pastor of Covenant Church, came to us and said, would you start a Celebrate Recovery downtown? What is it? He told us. And Charlotte and I, my wife and I, were sent up to Spartanburg, South Carolina to go to the summit up there to learn how to start a Celebrate Recovery group. And on the way, I said, you know what, Chuck? You're sending the right people. There ain't nothing wrong with us. 2 hours in the next morning, she looked at me and we celebrated. there is something wrong with us. Everybody has hurts, hang-ups, and habits they want to get rid of. I went up there thinking, this is about alcohol and drugs. No. It's about whatever it is that ails you. I have a very good friend, and some of you all know him, I won't call his name, but he talks about it. Has a very serious food addiction. Weighs about 150 pounds, 6 feet tall. Manages a restaurant. Now there's a man facing his challenges. He said, I could get a stool and go back there in the kitchen and just sit there down the middle, eat some of everything. He doesn't, he overcame it because of Celebrate Recovery. Today, that Celebrate Recovery ministry is alive and well on Tuesday nights. And it basically serves the community correction population. The first night, we had a Celebrate Recovery at the Harbor Church. I was up there talking about Celebrate Recovery, lesson number 1 of 52 lessons. I'm thinking, I ain't doing it right. I'm not getting any feedback. You know, a famous man once said, you can't move a person's mind until you move their body. Right now, I keep looking around the room, looking for someone doing this. If I don't see it, I'm gonna sit down. Wasting my time and yours. But that first night, my office was right across the street from that church. And we had a prayer box. People put their prayer requests in it. And I take those prayer requests after the service and go to my office and sit down and read them and pray. And this one first night of Celebrate Recovery, prayer request said, thank you for tonight's service. I was going to kill myself. This day, I have no idea who that was. I didn't see any unusual death in the next couple of days of papers. I guess it probably worked. I would love to know who that is. I don't have a clue. Someone got the message. That's what's important. We talk about stealing a prescription from someone. We talk about robbery of a person, robbery of a drugstore. Robbery. People confuse robbery with the word burglary. Robbery is the taking of the property from someone else by violence or force or threat of violence. That's pretty bold. Burglary of a drugstore. They share with their friends. They get a pretty good prescription going. And they'll share it with their buddies. Illegal substances, examples, heroin. There is no medicinal use for heroin, none whatsoever. Except to cook it down and shoot it in your veins with an insulin needle and get high and pass out. We have a drug today called Narcan that will bring people from an overdose right back to the way they ought to be in seconds. But you know, when a deputy sheriff or a police officer tries to give it to them, they fight because you're going to ruin their high. Marijuana is kind of an illegal substance, becoming legal in more states. It's becoming a medicinal product in more states, but it's still evil in what it does to the human body. Bath salts, that was kind of popular for a while. You go to the convenience store and buy some bath salts, just something to put in the pipe and smoke, get high. Synthetic marijuana, also known on the street as legal weed, it isn't. Problem with synthetic marijuana is it doesn't have its contents listed on the outside of the bottle. It's made up of anything that people can get their hands on that are going to brew synthetic marijuana. How much Drano goes in this batch? And I'm telling you the truth. Drano, bleach, butane, lighter fluid. And no two batches are just alike. Some do concoction, someone has gathered up. They talk about alcohol abuse. Well, how about we just do it this way? Here we go, alcohol abuse in 2019 kills 95,000 people in a year. 95,000 people in a year. 629 people, almost 2 a day in Alabama die because of alcohol abuse. There are 4 alcohols in the alcohol: ethanol, methanol, propanol, isopropanol. The machine that checks you for drunk driving can't tell the difference between them. 268 alcohol-related deaths in Alabama last year. 10,000 vehicle deaths in the United States where alcohol was a factor. You know how little alcohol it takes to be under the influence. The Code of Alabama, 3258-191, says no person shall operate against actual physical control of the motor vehicle while, number one, they have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 or greater by weight in his or her body. Some of that mumbo jumbo Terry was talking about. What's that mean? There are 28.35 grams in 1 ounce. 0.08 grams of it in 210 liters of your breath is against the law. 210 liters, 55.45 gallons. Doesn't take a whole lot to be convicted of DUI in Alabama. Actually, there are several ways to violate the statute. I'll talk about that first one. 0.08 or greater. Number 2, that you're under the influence in the opinion of the arresting officer. Number 3, that you're under the influence of a controlled substance, which is found on the Alabama Controlled Substance List. Number 4 is under the influence of a combination of alcohol and a controlled substance. And number 5 is anything else. And anything else was brought just because of things like legal weed. You send off 10 samples to the state crime lab, you're gonna get 10 different answers back on what's in it. Some drugs. Some drugs make you feel invincible. Some make you forget your worries. Some pretend to enhance creativity. They all have one thing in common. Their high is short-lived, and they have harmful or residual side effects. Talk about tobacco use. 480,000 people a year die nationwide because of tobacco use. 8,800 in Alabama in 2019. 8,800 people died because of tobacco use. 20% of all deaths in Alabama each year, tobacco related. We glorify smoking, knowing that nicotine is 20 times more addictive than heroin. My next cigarette will be my first in my life. I saw tobacco tear apart part of my family. Internet use, how's that going to kill you? 3,500 people died nationwide last 2019 because of internet use. Of 1,600,000 vehicle crashes, 25% were texting drivers who were distracted. Problem is the internet is always on and it always is demanding your attention. I can't wait to look at my phone to see who tried to call me, to see what I've got to answer to. But here's the problem. A vehicle traveling down the highway for every 1 mile an hour is traveling 1.467 feet per second. This room is 44 feet long. Now, 88 feet long, I'm sorry. This room is 88 feet long. At 60 miles an hour, you're traveling 88 feet per second. How long does it take to look at a text message? 2 seconds. You've traveled twice the distance of this room while you're looking at your phone. Why do you think so many accidents now are rear-end collisions? You see them every day going out West Main. Here's somebody plowed in the back of someone else. Guarantee you. Text. Can't do 2 things at once, especially when one of them is piloting a 3,000-pound vehicle down the highway at 88 feet per second. 88 feet per second. Just think about that. We'll try it. That message can wait. It'll be there when you get somewhere that you can answer. Traffic deaths. Think about reaction time. This all comes back to the question, why am I out here? Rotary International has established an anti-addiction campaign. It has come home to roost. District 6880. Bruce McNeil has appointed me as chair of this anti-addiction program within 6880 to produce a video that can be shown. I can't be like Bruce. I can't go to every club in this. I had no idea there were so many clubs. But Bruce is going to make the rounds. See that those other clubs in this group, this district, get a chance to help. We're going to aim 8th through 12th graders. Have some incentive programs, poster contest, or do something. Raise drug awareness, problem with drugs. On behalf of Bruce McNeil, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. I think probably everyone here knows someone that's been affected by drug use. The next week's program is going to be brought to us by Adam Overson, the on XO Armor. Interesting. So I want to thank you for being here and thank our guests and visiting Rotarians, and with that, stand and go over the 4-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do,
is it true? Is it fair of all concerned?